Welcome to tecversity. This is Venkatesh Natraj. I'm going to talk today about the wireless routers. In general, we all have a broadband connection and a wireless router in our workplace or at home. And every wireless connection has a SSID and a password, and we have to authenticate to connect to it. So what is SSID? Self-Service Identifier. And what is PPP? And what is PPPoE? These are the inbuilt functions within the wireless router. I'm going to touch base on how to configure the wireless router with the broadband connection. And if we have multiple routers at home and you want to use that as an extender, in this video I'm going to cover the tutorial as well. And how to reset the password, how to reset the entire wireless router, I'm going to show in detail. So with no delay, let's get into the details. Before that, if you haven't subscribed to tecversity yet, please do subscribe and share this video with your friends and family. So I'm going to show how to configure the wireless router, and this is a TP-Link wireless router. I'm going to show how to configure this. And before starting to getting into the configuration details, I'll explain about this router. So this router is offered by Act FiberNet, and this has 2-band wireless router. This is a 2.4 band as well as 5 band is available in this router. And the details about the bands, the name by default, what is the name and what is the password, here we can figure it out, the name and everything, you will have it here. Now there is a password also mentioned here. So this password is actually a different password. For every router there will be a home page where you will connect to the router. Once you connected to the router, you will get into that home page and make the changes of the wireless routing, the configuration to this router. So I'll show how to connect to this on the laptop, and for now I'll explain you what are the options available. So let me connect to this power so that it will be much easily visible. So the moment I connect this router to internet, there are multiple switches that will come up here. Multiple lights will come up here. Now there is a power button, there is a wireless 2.4, there is 5 gigahertz, there is internet. The internet light will come up if there is an internet connection. If it will show up, if there is no internet connection, it will not show up. But if there is a connection but the internet is not coming, in that case it will turn into red or orange. And there are other buttons here, lights here. I'll explain what are those. And if you come back to here, here is the power connection that we have to give the power source, and there is a switch which can turn and turn off the wireless router, and there is a blue port which is to internet connection. So whatever the broadband or the internet service provider offering, we are taking the connection, we have to give that connection here. So the blue is for internet input, and all these orange, the 4 ports are for network LAN connection. Now this router not only offers the wireless connectivity, it will also offer the network LAN connection. That means this not only taking the input of internet, it also offers the internet service through the network, through the LAN cable from these ports. So the maximum you can use it for 4. And there is a WPS button. In case if you don't know the Wi-Fi password, you can press this and bring the device closer to your wireless router. The wireless device will connect automatically. Now there is something called reset, and this is a small hole. If you see it, this small hole, this is for performing the reset. Now you have to use a safety pin or a SIM ejector pin to press hold this, and then it will be, this router will get reset. Now I am holding this, you can see all the lights will start blinking. That's when actually the router will get reset. So I am holding into the hole. So that's how the performing the reset. So the reset will happen only in case if you really want to reset, if you forgot the configuration, if you forgot the page the password information and all that, only then in that case you will perform the reset. So these are the antennas for the Wi-Fi router. These are flexible, you can move around 180 degrees each one of them. Now not every router will have 4, some routers will have 3, some routers will have 2, some routers will have 4, and depends on the requirement and the range. In case if you see there is less range within your area or within the living room or within the rooms on the building that you are living, you can adjust these and that will give better connectivity. So this is how it is, and I'm going to show how to connect this now on the system and how to configure this router on the system. Now, like I mentioned, every router will have one home page, and we have to connect using the IP address 192.168.0.1. that is the IP address. Once you connect to this router, whether you give internet connection or not, it doesn't matter. Once this router is turned on and connected to this laptop, to your laptop, in that case, only after that you have to enter 192.168.0.1 in the browser, and it will come up to it will take you to the home page. In that home page, you have a password this listed here, and that password to enter into that configuration page, and you can make the changes. I'll show how to connect and how to make those changes in the configuration. So now I'll show how to connect to the wireless router that I have, and for that I have to go to my wireless settings, and I'll select the available network here. So I see there are multiple available networks here, but the one which I am trying to connect with my router is ACT FiberNet 5G or ACT FiberNet. Like I mentioned, for 2.4 it will be just ACT FiberNet, and if it is 5 gigahertz, it will be ACT FiberNet _ 5G. So for both the bands, the password, since I have already performed a reset, the password remains the same. So I'll click any one of this, and the password is ACT, all small letters, 1 2 3 4 5. So that's the password by default after performing the reset. So it will take couple of seconds to authenticate. It will try to connect it, and the reason why it is taking too long for connection here is it will also try to see whether this network has a internet connection, the ability of connecting to the internet. So for that reason, it will try to see whether all these parameters are met. If it is not having internet, it will say it is connected but it doesn't have internet. That's how the message will come. So that is the actual process is going on now. So if you see, it is connected now, and it is asking us to disconnect in case if we don't need to, and it says it connected, no internet, and it is secured. The connection seems to be secured, but there is no internet. So that's what I was telling, right? So since we are just focusing only on no internet connection, just only on the wireless router configurations. So now this is connected. What will I do is I'll go to my browser, and I'll show how to connect to this particular router. So now I'm on my browser. I have opened a Chrome browser. Now I will type 192.168.0.1. So that is a gateway to connect to this router. Now if you see it, it's already connected. It says TP-Link, that is the home page of this particular router. Now it is asking to enter the password. The password for this screen, it will be mentioned on the back side of the router. So if you are using a different vendor or whatever the vendor you're using, this password definitely is available on the back side of the router. So it is ACT@123, ACT@123. Since I'm using an ACT FiberNet provided router, I have this ACT@123. If it is if you purchase your own router, and that password is definitely on the back side, and it will also say the default gateway, what is the IP address of the default gateway. Now the challenge here is the default gateway 99.99% it will be 192.168.0.1. In very rare scenarios there is a change, but what it would be, we have to figure it out on that particular router. But in this case it's still 192.168.0.1. Now I have entered this and I clicked on login. Now it is authenticated. Now we have multiple options available here. So it says status, MAC address of this router, and we have IPv6 and IPv4, 2.4 gigahertz and 5.5 gigahertz. And what is the SSID? SSID means self-service identifier. So the wireless network name. In general, if we go to railway stations or to any specific malls, we see multiple Wi-Fi's available provided by different shops and malls. So each SSID is representing to that particular store or to that particular mall. So in this case, since I have performed the reset, the by default the SSID is Act FiberNet. Now I have an option to change it, or I can leave it as it is. So I'll show you how to do that. And there is an in this screen we see there are even the LAN connections. Like I mentioned, the wireless router not just only offers the wireless, it also helps us to connect to internet using the wired connection. So for that it shows the LAN and what are the options we have: IPv4, IPv6. So I'll be doing a separate video in detail about what is IPv4 and what is IPv6 and how to differentiate it and what are the options we have. And it's a huge topic to discuss on the IP addresses. So I'll be doing a separate video on that. Now for now I'll only talk about the wireless routers. Now we have multiple options here. Now there is something called operational mode. So I'll click on the operational mode, and here it says operational mode is router current mode, and there is something called access point. Now this is very important to understand what is these two options are. Now the first option, the picture itself explains it very clearly what exactly it is. Now what exactly that means, we have given a broadband connection to the router, and the router has the ability to share the internet using the wireless, and all the devices are connecting. So if you see, this globe symbol is actually representing the internet, and it's connected to this wireless router. That means the broadband connection is provided, and then through wireless network all the devices are accessing. So in this straightforward case, there is nothing have any difference in understanding or any difficulty in understanding. It's the internet is connected directly to the wireless router, and the wireless router is sharing the internet service to all the devices which has Wi-Fi enabled devices, and it is offering internet. It's as simple as that. Now there is something called access point. Now what exactly access point? Now I have a wireless router in my house, and if think I have a building, a 1-story or 2-story, or a place where I don't have much range. Now in that case, I will use this router as an access point. That means the first image, it's offering internet directly to the router, and router connects directly to the wireless devices. Here what it happens is, in this access point, the internet remains the same and it connects to the first router, and the router will offer internet, and from this router I will connect to another router using the wired connection. Now I mentioned that every router has the not just only the wireless offering wireless service, it will also have a wired connection. So you have to connect a wire connection from router A to router B, and for router B you have to plug that network cable into the internet access port. So there are multiple ports, one is in blue, another one are in orange. I'll show that again. The orange ones are actually for offering the internet service to the devices that we want to connect, but the blue one is actually taking the internet directly from the network cable through the external source, the internet, actual internet which we are talking. So now in this scenario, the access point will be taking, that means the additional router will take internet connection from the router A through the network cable, and it will offer the wireless services. So we are actually, what we are doing is, we are extending the wireless range using 2 routers. So if you have a building which is spreaded across a huge building, and you want to offer the same internet connection through entire building, now the wireless routers may have limitations. The range may not go to the entire building. So in that scenario, you will use a wireless router, additional wireless router, and connects it to the first router through a network cable, and it offers the wireless connection to entire building. Now the question here is, how many wireless connections we see? In general, we see 4 wireless connections here, because the first router will have 2 connections, like 2.4 band and 5 gigahertz, and the second router will also have a 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. To differentiate, I would recommend you to give a different name. You can keep the same password, that it will not harm, but the recommendation to have a separate name, so that you can easily identify which router you are connected to. So that's about the operation mode. Now if you move to the network mode, under network mode we have multiple options. internet, LAN settings, interface grouping, dynamic DNS, static routing, IPv6 tunnel. So I'll talk about the first two, which is internet. Now this internet option, the moment you connect your wireless router to the internet, in the blue port you have connected the internet connection. In that case, it will automatically identify the internet service. That's how it offers it. Now if it is not automatically connecting, then you have to go for a static IP or PPPoE. So the dynamic IP, in the sense, the IP address of the internal to the internet that it's offering will be provided by the internet service provider. That ISP will define what is the IP address. It will be dynamically changing. What is dynamic, what is static is I'll be talking about that in detail in the networking class, in the networking video. But for now, you can understand that dynamic will be keep changing, and you will not have any specific IP address. It will be changed by the ISP, the internet service provider, and we never know what is that IP address. We can see it, but it doesn't matter because it will be keep changing. The static IP is the internet service provider will assign a specific IP address to this internet connection. In case if I purchase an internet connection, the static IP will be assigned to me, and that will be permanent. That static, in the sense, it's a permanent. And in very rare scenarios, we will have a static connection. In 99.99 cases, we will have only the dynamic IP address. And there is something called PPPoE. So this is a point-to-point connection over Ethernet. Now, since we are talking about the internet connection over via the network cable, so this is another option. Only few internet service providers will offer this PPPoE, point-to-point internet over the Ethernet. So this is another option that is offered by internet service providers. Now you have to understand, while you purchase a new internet connection or a broadband connection, the technician who comes to your place, he will select these options and he will configure. You don't need to do anything. Even if you want to use an additional access point, you don't need to worry about this. You just leave it as a dynamic. This is only offered by certain ISPs, the internet service providers, and the technician who comes and installs the internet connection at your home, they will take care of this. And this is the same thing for IPv4 and IPv6. So IPv6 is again, it has a different range of IP addresses, and that will be given by the internet service provider. In case if their internet offering is through IPv6, in that case this will be the option that they will give. So, and then let's move on to the LAN setting. So this is very important to understand what is the LAN setting. Now we have internet connection, we have connected our devices to multiple devices across within our network. Now what is the range that each device is accessible? Is like, for example, I have a router, I have a printer and I want to connect to the printer, and that printer is also have a wireless connection. Now to identify what is the network or what is the IP address, here this will offer the IP addresses. You can change the range of IP addresses as per your wish, but it's recommended to leave it to the router. It will identify what are the ranges that it has to give. When I am talking about the ranges, there will be like multiple classes of IP addresses, like class A, class B, class C, class D. Class D we won't generally use in any of the networks, but class A, class B, class C is what we use. And again, in class A, class B, class C, we have static IPs, we have dynamic IPs, and we have a private IPs and public IPs, and there's something called APIPA, automatic private IP addressing. So I'll be talking about that in a different video, but for now it may not sound much detailed when I'm explaining about this, because I'll be talking about that in detail in a separate video. For now, you consider this as leave it as it is, and unless you really know what is the IP address and what range you want, only in that scenario I would recommend you to make the changes, or else you leave it as it is. And if you scroll down little down, you will see what clients that's already connected. In this case, it says what are the IPs it's offering, and which are already connected. That means I have 3 devices which are connected to this network, and it will say what are those devices already connected. So that's how we will figure it out. I have my laptop, I have my phone, I have another device, I have a camera. So we will see what are the devices that accessing internet and what are connected to this particular wireless network, and what are the IP addresses that assigned to each one of them. So that's the information that we will figure it out. So now let's move to the wireless connection settings. Now let's move to the wireless settings. So this is the wireless setting where we have to ensure what is the SSID, that means the self-service ID, that in general we call it as the wireless name. What is the wireless name and what is the password? So this is the place on this screen we will make those changes. So we have 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. The moment you click on 5 gigahertz, the name of SSID will be changing, and the password and everything will be changed. So for now I will select the 2.4 and I will change this to tecversity. So now for 2.4 I'm just giving tecversity, and the password I will remove, keep it as it is. I won't change anything. So it will take couple of seconds to update the SSID in the system, in the router's data, and it will then come back to the normal screen. So now if we go to this screen here, you will see tecversity is an option that is offered here. So let's see, we can see the tecversity here. So similarly, now I will change the 5 gigahertz as well. So for 5 I will just keep that as a hash tecversity and underscore 5G. So I'll leave it as it is. Now I'll just click on save. Now the connection will renamed into hash tecversity 5G, and the chances are getting the network connection dropped here because we are already connected to the 5G which is offered in the initial name at fibernet underscore 5G. Now I changed the name, and in that case now the connection will lost. So what we need to do is we will come back here, and I will select the tecversity underscore 5G and click on connect. Now the password I have to enter, it's again the same act 1 2 3 4 5. Now the Wi-Fi has connected to it, and we can see it says the same thing again. It is no internets provided. So since we are just only connected to the wireless router, it doesn't have a broadband connection. So pretty much this is how we make the changes to the wireless router. Hope this information is useful. If you have any questions, please drop a comment in the comment section. I would be more happy to assist. And please ensure you like this video and subscribe to tecversity if you haven't already, and share this video with your friends and family. Have a good day. Happy learning.